People have spent years trying to figure out what makes Keanu Reeves different from almost every other Hollywood star. While scandals kept destroying careers around him, his reputation somehow stayed untouched. No endless drama, no arrogant interviews, no fake image falling apart online. And then suddenly, one woman quietly became part of his life and changed everything people thought they knew about him. When Alexandra Grant appeared beside him publicly, the internet exploded with theories, rumors, and assumptions. Some people called it the most genuine relationship in Hollywood. Others claimed there was a hidden truth nobody understood, but after years of speculation, public appearances, rare interviews, and real moments caught off guard, the truth about Keanu Reeves and Alexandra Grant is finally becoming impossible to ignore. And what makes this story different is that almost none of it was built for attention. For years, people created an image of Keanu Reeves that almost felt unreal. The quiet man who sat alone on benches, the superstar who rode motorcycles through Los Angeles without bodyguards surrounding him, the actor who treated crew members with respect while other celebrities became known for ego and headlines. But the deeper truth is that Keanu never tried to build a perfect image at all. In multiple interviews over the years, including conversations with Esquire and late-night appearances, he consistently avoided turning himself into some larger-than-life celebrity character. Instead, he spoke carefully, often redirecting praise away from himself and toward the people around him. That is one reason why the arrival of Alexandra Grant into public view shocked so many people. Fans were not used to seeing Keanu openly comfortable beside someone in front of cameras. For decades, his personal life stayed extremely private. Even during the height of movies like The Matrix and John Wick, interviews almost never focused on romance. Whenever journalists pushed into personal territory, he usually moved the conversation back toward work, creativity, motorcycles, books, or filmmaking. That silence allowed endless speculation to grow online because people tend to fill empty spaces with assumptions. But the reality behind Alexandra Grant's connection with Keanu started long before red carpets ever noticed them together. Their relationship reportedly began as a creative friendship years earlier when they collaborated on art and publishing projects. One of the clearest public records proving their creative connection exists through the book Ode to Happiness, released in 2011, where Alexandra provided illustrations while Keanu wrote the text. Later, they worked together again on Shadows, another artistic collaboration that reflected Keanu's interest in photography, identity, and emotion. These were not flashy celebrity business moves designed for headlines. They were quiet projects built around mutual artistic respect. And that detail matters because many fans completely misunderstood how their relationship developed. The internet often acts as if Alexandra suddenly appeared out of nowhere beside one of Hollywood's biggest stars, but documented evidence shows they shared creative space for years before the public even considered them a couple. People close to Hollywood noticed something else too. Unlike many celebrity relationships built around visibility, luxury branding, or social media performance, theirs remained unusually low-key. Alexandra herself rarely acted like someone interested in celebrity culture. She already had an established career in the art world before tabloids started mentioning her name daily. Interviews and gallery discussions about her work existed independently from Keanu long before public fascination exploded. That became important because critics online tried pushing false narratives that she was somehow using Keanu for attention, yet the timeline never really supported those claims. If publicity had been the goal, there were countless opportunities for louder media exposure earlier. Instead, both of them stayed private for years. One major turning point came in 2019 when they appeared together publicly at the LACMA Art Plus Film Gala in Los Angeles. Suddenly, photos spread everywhere. Social media reacted instantly. Headlines focused not only on the fact that Keanu appeared publicly with a partner, but also on Alexandra's natural gray hair and mature appearance. That reaction exposed something uncomfortable about celebrity culture itself. Many fans praised the relationship because it looked real instead of manufactured. Others criticized Alexandra unfairly simply because she did not fit the unrealistic Hollywood expectation of appearing decades younger than her age. Alexandra later addressed this attention in interviews, explaining that she had gone gray relatively early in life and felt comfortable with it. That honesty became refreshing to many people tired of fake perfection online. Meanwhile, Keanu never publicly played into the noise. He did not jump into interviews defending his relationship dramatically or using it for publicity campaigns. He simply continued appearing beside her naturally, which in many ways made the relationship feel even more authentic to audiences watching carefully. Another reason fans became emotionally invested is because many people already knew parts of Keanu's painful past. Over the years, details emerged about personal tragedies he experienced, including the loss of his daughter and later the death of former partner Jennifer Syme in 2001. These events were documented publicly and discussed respectfully in biographies and interviews. Across years of media coverage, fans connected those tragedies to Keanu's deeply reserved personality. Whether accurate or not, people developed the perception of a man carrying enormous grief quietly while continuing to work and treat others kindly. So when Alexandra appeared in his life publicly, many fans interpreted it emotionally. They saw not just a celebrity romance, but a person who finally seemed peaceful beside someone. Body language experts online analyzed their appearances endlessly, though some of those videos crossed into exaggeration. Still, ordinary moments stood out. Photos of them laughing, naturally, holding hands without performance. Attending events without behaving like they needed the spotlight focused only on them. In a celebrity culture built around constant self-promotion, those quieter moments felt unusual. Interviews involving Keanu during recent years also revealed subtle shifts people noticed. While still private, he occasionally appeared more relaxed, discussing happiness, companionship, and life outside filmmaking. One widely shared interview moment came when he was asked what happiness looked like to him, and he answered simply about being with someone he loved. The internet reacted strongly because fans rarely heard him speak so openly in emotional terms. Importantly, though, Keanu still maintained boundaries. He never transformed his relationship into entertainment content for public consumption. There were no reality show-style reveals. No oversharing online, no endless attention-seeking couple branding. And perhaps that restraint is exactly why public interest kept growing stronger. People sensed they were seeing something genuine instead of carefully marketed romance. Even Alexandra's interviews reflected this grounded energy. When speaking publicly after attention intensified, she acknowledged how strange the sudden global fascination felt. In one interview with British Vogue, she described receiving calls from nearly everyone she knew after photos of them spread online. Yet even then, she redirected focus toward creativity, art, and human connection instead of celebrity gossip. That consistency matters because fake relationships often collapse under scrutiny when public personas stop matching reality. Years later, however, Keanu and Alexandra still present the same calm dynamic they showed from the beginning. No dramatic scandals, no public feuds. No messy attention cycles dominating entertainment news every week. Another interesting layer involves how fans project their own hopes onto Keanu himself. Because he built a reputation for kindness through countless viral stories. People almost treat him differently from other celebrities. Stories spread online for years about him giving up subway seats, helping crew members financially, eating alone quietly after movie success, or taking pay cuts to support film productions. While some stories became exaggerated through internet mythology, many were backed by interviews from coworkers and industry professionals. Over time, this created the idea of Keanu as the good man of Hollywood. Therefore, when Alexandra entered the picture, audiences judged the relationship through that emotional lens too. Fans desperately wanted it to be real because they wanted Keanu himself to remain real. That is why false rumors occasionally spread online trying to invent hidden drama or conspiracy around Alexandra, but most failed quickly because verifiable public evidence never supported them. Instead, the strongest evidence available consistently showed two adults connected through creativity, privacy, and mutual respect. Even professionally, their relationship reflected shared artistic interests beyond film celebrity culture. Together, they co-founded X Artists Books, a publishing company focused on thoughtful, artist-centered projects. Again, this was not the typical flashy, celebrity-side business filled with branding deals and viral marketing. It aligned closely with both their long-standing interests in literature, visual art, and collaboration. That detail often gets ignored in gossip coverage because quieter truths are less sensational than invented drama. But when examining the actual timeline and documented interviews carefully, The relationship appears rooted far more in friendship and shared intellectual interests than in Hollywood spectacle. There is also something important about how Keanu protects normalcy. Despite global fame, he continues living relatively simply compared to many stars of his level. Coworkers repeatedly describe him as punctual, respectful, hardworking, and low maintenance on set. Directors who worked with him on the John Wick franchise often spoke about his dedication to stunt training and collaboration with crews. That same grounded energy appears publicly with Alexandra. They are sometimes photographed walking normally through cities, attending museums, supporting events connected to art, or sharing quiet interactions instead of creating massive paparazzi spectacles. Fans notice those details because modern celebrity relationships often feel transactional or heavily curated for engagement. Keanu and Alexandra instead appear almost resistant to that system entirely. Perhaps that is why audiences continue discussing them years after their first public appearance together. Another reason their story resonates is because it challenges certain Hollywood expectations about aging and image. Alexandra's visibility sparked major discussions online precisely because she did not transform herself into a stereotypical celebrity partner aesthetic. Many women publicly thanked her for existing naturally in a culture obsessed with impossible beauty standards. Meanwhile, Keanu himself has visibly aged naturally over the years too, keeping much of his personality and appearance authentic, instead of desperately chasing artificial youth. Together, they unintentionally became symbols of something audiences rarely see from celebrity couples anymore: comfort without performance. That does not mean their relationship is perfect or magical beyond reality. No real relationship works that way. But what makes their story compelling is actually the absence of chaos people expected to uncover. Tabloids searched constantly for scandals, hidden issues, dramatic betrayals, or attention-seeking behavior because celebrity culture usually rewards those narratives. Yet year after year, very little appeared. Instead, the story stayed remarkably consistent. Two creative people met through artistic collaboration, formed a close connection over time, and slowly allowed the public to see part of that relationship without turning it into a media circus. Even fans who originally doubted the relationship gradually softened after observing them together over multiple years. One reason is because fake public relationships often contain obvious performance moments designed specifically for cameras. With Keanu and Alexandra, however, many widely shared moments happened during situations where neither appeared focused on media attention at all. Simple conversations, natural laughter, supportive gestures during events. Those details are difficult to manufacture consistently across years without cracks eventually appearing. Another interesting truth involves how both of them handle fame differently from many modern celebrities. Neither seems obsessed with constant online visibility. Keanu famously avoided social media for years, while Alexandra's public presence centered more around professional artistic work than celebrity branding. In an era where relationships often become monetized content streams, their approach feels almost old-fashioned. And ironically, that privacy probably increased public fascination even more because mystery always attracts attention. Still, despite endless online discussion, the actual documented truth remains surprisingly simple. There is no evidence of secret manipulation, hidden scandals, or manufactured image control behind their relationship. The strongest publicly available evidence instead points toward a long-term friendship that evolved naturally into romance through shared creative passions and mutual trust. When fans say the relationship feels real, they are usually reacting to that consistency. There is no major disconnect between public appearances, interviews, timelines, and documented collaborations. Everything lines up in a way celebrity gossip rarely does anymore. One subtle but powerful detail many fans noticed involved how Keanu physically behaves around Alexandra compared to older public appearances throughout his career. Historically, he often appeared somewhat reserved during public events, even when polite and professional. But newer appearances frequently showed visible ease and warmth. Small gestures became major talking points online because audiences sensed emotional authenticity rather than rehearsed celebrity behavior. Of course, internet culture sometimes exaggerates these observations into fantasy narratives, but the underlying reason people respond emotionally is understandable. They are witnessing someone long associated with loneliness and tragedy appearing genuinely comfortable beside another person. That emotional contrast carries weight, whether people admit it or not. Even industry insiders have commented over the years that Keanu's reputation behind the scenes remains unusually positive for someone with his level of fame. Stories from stunt teams, makeup artists, directors, and fellow actors repeatedly describe humility and professionalism. While no celebrity should ever be treated as superhuman or flawless, consistency across decades matters, and that consistency extends into how he has approached his relationship publicly too. Calm, respectful, low drama, grounded. Alexandra mirrors much of that same energy publicly, which may explain why their dynamic appears so stable from the outside. Another fascinating aspect is how the internet slowly transformed its reaction over time. When photos first surfaced publicly, discussions often focused on shock or superficial commentary. But years later, the conversation shifted dramatically toward admiration and respect. Many people now describe them as one of Hollywood's most believable couples, precisely because they never seemed desperate to convince the world of anything. They simply continued living their lives while allowing limited glimpses into their relationship naturally. In many ways, the biggest truth finally revealed about Keanu Reeves and Alexandra Grant is actually far less dramatic than the rumors people spent years inventing. The truth is that their connection appears built on patience, friendship, creativity, privacy, and emotional maturity rather than Hollywood spectacle. And maybe that simplicity is exactly why so many people struggled to believe it at first. There's also a deeper reason why the relationship between Keanu Reeves and Alexandra Grant continues to hold attention long after the original headlines faded. People are not just reacting to romance. They are reacting to consistency in a world where celebrity culture constantly changes personalities depending on what benefits the spotlight most. Over the years, audiences watched famous couples appear perfect online only to collapse publicly months later through scandals, betrayals, lawsuits, or shocking interviews. Because of that pattern, viewers became trained to expect hidden problems behind every polished Hollywood image. So when Keanu and Alexandra kept showing the same calm energy year after year, curiosity only grew stronger. Many fans started looking backward through Keanu's entire life story to understand how this relationship seemed so different from typical celebrity narratives. What they found was a man whose career survived not because he chased fame aggressively, but because he stayed connected to work, discipline, and authenticity while Hollywood itself changed around him. During the 1990s, Keanu became one of the most recognizable actors in the world through films like Speed and later The Matrix, yet even at the peak of global fame, journalists often described him as unusually quiet and thoughtful. Unlike stars who dominated interviews with ego or controversy, Keanu frequently appeared almost uncomfortable, treating himself like an untouchable celebrity figure. Directors and co-stars repeatedly noticed the same thing. He focused heavily on preparation, collaboration, and physical commitment to roles rather than building a larger-than-life persona outside movies. That reputation followed him for decades, when the John Wick franchise unexpectedly revived action cinema and introduced Keanu to an entirely new generation. Fans once again became fascinated not only by the movies, but by the person himself. Suddenly, viral videos and old interview clips spread everywhere online. People rediscovered stories about him helping crew members, learning stunt choreography with extreme dedication, and speaking respectfully about filmmaking. As internet culture became more cynical towards celebrity behavior, Keanu almost represented the opposite of what audiences had grown tired of. But that same admiration created another problem. People began idealizing him to unrealistic levels, turning him into a symbol instead of remembering he was still a private human being. That is why Alexandra Grant's presence became such a major cultural conversation. For years, fans projected loneliness onto Keanu because they connected his quiet personality with the tragedies documented throughout his life. Articles repeatedly revisited the heartbreaking losses involving his child and former partner, Jennifer Syme. Interviews where he spoke about grief in reflective ways only strengthened the emotional connection audiences felt toward him. One particularly shared quote came from an interview where he described grief changing shape but never fully disappearing. Fans remembered lines like that because they felt deeply personal and honest instead of rehearsed. So when Alexandra appeared beside him publicly, people interpreted the relationship almost like the final chapter of a long emotional story they had followed from a distance for years. Suddenly, the internet was filled with comments saying things like, "He finally looks happy," or "He deserves peace," Those reactions reveal something important about how audiences emotionally attach themselves to public figures over time. But beyond emotional reactions, there are concrete reasons why the relationship gained credibility rather than fading as another temporary Hollywood rumor. One major factor is timing. By the time most people learned about Alexandra, the two had already known each other for years through creative collaboration. That history matters because many celebrity relationships appear overnight with no visible foundation, making audiences suspicious that publicity or career strategy might be involved. With Keanu and Alexandra, however, documented projects proved their connection existed long before red carpet appearances became news. Ode to Happiness and Shadows were not rushed celebrity cash grabs. Both reflected artistic interests that aligned naturally with Alexandra's professional background and Keanu's long-standing fascination with storytelling, photography, and introspection. In interviews connected to these projects, their conversations sounded collaborative rather than performative. They discussed ideas, emotion, artistic process, and visual storytelling instead of trying to market themselves as a glamorous celebrity duo. That distinction may seem small, but audiences subconsciously notice authenticity when it appears consistently over time. Another important detail involves how Alexandra herself handled sudden public attention. Many people expected her to embrace celebrity culture aggressively once global headlines focused on her relationship with Keanu. Instead, she continued largely speaking about art, creativity, and human connection. Even when discussing the overwhelming public reaction, she rarely turned interviews into dramatic relationship storytelling. One reason fans respected this approach is because it matched Keanu's long-established boundaries around privacy. Neither person appeared interested in transforming their relationship into constant media content. There were no endless paparazzi setups, no public social media fights. Your carefully staged relationship reveals every few weeks. In fact, one of the reasons fans became so obsessed with small public moments between them is because such moments remained relatively rare. People analyzed photographs of hand-holding, eye contact, and casual conversations precisely because the relationship was not oversaturated across entertainment media every day. Scarcity created fascination. But beyond media behavior, there is another truth many people ignore. Keanu and Alexandra also represent a type of mature relationship, rarely centered in Hollywood conversations. Celebrity culture often prioritizes youth, spectacle, and unrealistic fantasy. Alexandra's natural appearance, including her gray hair, unexpectedly challenged those expectations when the relationship became public. Instead of hiding signs of aging, she embraced them openly. That alone sparked millions of conversations online because audiences are used to women in entertainment facing enormous pressure to appear eternally youthful. Alexandra later explained publicly that she began going gray relatively young and felt comfortable with it, though she also acknowledged the broader health conversations surrounding beauty standards and hair dye chemicals. Those comments resonated because they sounded thoughtful rather than defensive. Meanwhile, Keanu himself also aged naturally without aggressively reinventing his appearance to chase impossible standards. Together, they unintentionally became symbols of authenticity in an industry built heavily around illusion. Fans noticed that immediately. Another fascinating element is how both of them seem connected by intellectual curiosity. More than celebrity status, Alexandra's work as an artist explores language, identity, text, and communication in ways that align surprisingly well with Keanu's reflective personality seen across interviews for decades. People who only know Keanu through action films sometimes forget how philosophical and introspective many of his public conversations have been throughout his career. Journalists repeatedly described him pausing thoughtfully before answering questions, especially when discussions moved toward life, mortality, art, or human experience. That same thoughtful energy appears in Alexandra's artistic work. When examining interviews and public appearances carefully, their chemistry often looks rooted less in Hollywood glamour and more in mutual understanding. Perhaps that is why their relationship feels believable to so many people watching from the outside. Even small moments support that perception. At events, they often appear genuinely engaged with each other rather than performing for cameras constantly. Body language experts online built entire videos analyzing these interactions, though some interpretations became exaggerated. Still, ordinary viewers consistently notice similar things independently: comfort, Patience, calmness, ease. These are not qualities audiences usually associate with high-profile celebrity couples navigating constant media pressure. And maybe that contrast explains why the fascination never disappeared. There is also an overlooked professional dimension to all this. Keanu's career itself has always moved differently from standard Hollywood trajectories. Despite becoming one of the biggest movie stars alive, he repeatedly chose unusual projects, smaller films, experimental work, and creative risks alongside blockbuster franchises. Colleagues often described him as more interested in meaningful collaboration than in protecting a carefully calculated brand. Alexandra's artistic career reflects a similar independence. Before widespread public attention connected her name to Keanu, she already had recognition within contemporary art spaces for her installations, text-based artwork, and collaborative projects. Understanding that independent identity matters because it disproves one of the internet's laziest assumptions, that she existed only in relation to Keanu's fame. Documented evidence simply does not support that narrative. She had her own established path before tabloids cared about her personal life. In many ways, that independence may actually strengthen the relationship publicly because audiences sense there is no obvious imbalance built around fame, dependency, or manufactured publicity. Another reason the relationship feels stable is because neither person appears interested in constant explanation. Modern celebrity culture encourages oversharing. Stars are expected to turn private experiences into content, emotional struggles into branding opportunities, and relationships into audience engagement strategies. Keanu and Alexandra largely rejected that system. They allowed public appearances to speak for themselves while maintaining significant privacy around personal details. Ironically, that restraint probably increased trust among fans because people became exhausted by relationships that feel monetized from the beginning. Instead of endless declarations online, Keanu and Alexandra communicated stability through consistency over time. And consistency is difficult to fake for years under intense public observation. Meanwhile, stories about Keanu's behavior behind the scenes continued reinforcing public perception. Stunt coordinators, co-stars, directors, and production teams repeatedly praised his work ethic and humility during interviews connected to projects like John Wick Chapter 4. Many discussed the extreme physical preparation required for the franchise, including months of firearms training, driving practice, martial arts choreography, and stunt rehearsal. Keanu's willingness to commit fully to demanding work well into his career impressed both coworkers and fans. But what fascinated audiences even more was that despite enormous success, he still behaved like someone grateful to participate creatively rather than someone entitled to special treatment. That grounded reputation influenced how people viewed his relationship too. Fans believed the relationship partly because it matched the personality traits already associated with him publicly for decades. Another overlooked truth involves timing within Keanu's life itself. By the time the relationship became public, he was no longer a young actor navigating fame recklessly. He had experienced career highs, painful losses, industry changes, and decades of intense visibility. Alexandra similarly brought maturity, creative identity, and life experience into the relationship. Many fans interpreted that emotional maturity as part of why the connection appeared peaceful rather than chaotic. There was no obvious need to prove anything publicly, no desperate chasing of headlines, no constant image reinvention. Just two adults sharing space naturally while continuing their respective creative lives. And perhaps that normalcy felt revolutionary precisely because celebrity culture had become so artificial elsewhere. Over time, even media coverage around them shifted tone noticeably. Early headlines focused heavily on shock value or superficial commentary. Later coverage became more respectful and reflective because journalists realized there was no scandal hiding beneath the surface. Instead, interviews increasingly centered on creativity, partnership, artistic collaboration, and personal authenticity. Audiences changed too. Many people who initially reacted with surprise eventually began defending Alexandra passionately online after witnessing unfair criticism directed at her appearance or age. Supporters pointed out that much of the negativity exposed double standards women face publicly, especially in celebrity relationships. That conversation became bigger than gossip itself. It turned into a broader discussion about aging, authenticity, and unrealistic beauty expectations in entertainment culture. Unexpectedly, Keanu and Alexandra became central figures in that conversation, simply by existing naturally together in public. Another powerful reason their story resonates is because it offers something rare: emotional calmness. Audiences today consume nonstop drama across social media every hour. Scandals trend daily, outrage cycles move constantly. Against that backdrop, Keanu and Alexandra's relationship almost feels emotionally quiet. There is warmth without chaos, visibility without desperation, affection without performance. And that emotional tone creates trust among viewers, whether they consciously realize it or not. Even the way they appear at events reflects this difference. Instead of dominating every red carpet moment theatrically, they often seem genuinely focused on enjoying each other's company. Simple interactions become memorable because they contrast sharply with overly rehearsed celebrity behavior audiences usually expect. Of course, no outsider truly knows every detail of any private relationship. Fans sometimes forget that public figures still deserve boundaries and personal space beyond speculation. But based on documented interviews, public appearances, collaborative projects, and years of consistent behavior, the truth about Keanu Reeves and Alexandra Grant appears remarkably straightforward compared to the dramatic rumors internet culture tried inventing. There is no evidence of manipulation, secret agendas, or fake romance strategies. Instead, there is overwhelming evidence of long-term friendship, creative partnership, mutual respect, emotional maturity, and privacy maintained intentionally despite global attention. And perhaps the most surprising truth of all is how rare that has become in modern celebrity culture. While countless famous relationships rise and collapse publicly through attention cycles, Keanu and Alexandra quietly continued building something away from constant performance. Maybe that is why audiences remain fascinated, because beneath all the headlines, theories, viral clips, and online debates, people are ultimately responding to something very simple that feels increasingly uncommon: two people who genuinely seem comfortable being themselves together. And maybe the most important detail people finally started understanding about Keanu Reeves and Alexandra Grant is that their relationship never looked like it was designed to convince anyone of anything. There was no dramatic launch campaign introducing them as Hollywood's next power couple, no carefully scripted interviews pretending to reveal exclusive secrets, no constant social media performance turning private moments into content. In fact, the relationship became believable precisely because so much of it happened quietly outside the machinery that usually surrounds celebrity romance. When people look back now, many realize the public only noticed them after years of friendship and collaboration had already existed. And that timeline changes everything because it explains why the connection appeared so natural from the beginning instead of forced for attention. Long before red carpets and headlines exploded online, they had already built trust privately through creative work, conversation, and shared interests. That foundation is visible when watching interviews or public appearances carefully. There is an ease between them that is difficult to fake over long periods of time. People often underestimate how exhausting it becomes for celebrities to maintain artificial chemistry publicly year after year. Eventually, cracks appear, body language changes, interviews become awkward, scandals emerge. Yet with Keanu and Alexandra, the same emotional tone kept repeating consistently: calmness, patience, humor, attentiveness. Those details mattered because audiences today are incredibly skilled at detecting performance even when they cannot fully explain why something feels fake. Modern viewers consume celebrity culture constantly through interviews, podcasts, behind-the-scenes footage, live events, and social media clips. Subconsciously, they notice patterns. And the patterns surrounding Keanu and Alexandra never match the behavior usually associated with publicity-driven relationships. Another reason their story connected emotionally is because Keanu's public image had already become deeply symbolic long before Alexandra entered the spotlight beside him. Throughout the 2000s and 2010, as internet culture slowly transformed Keanu into something larger than an actor. He became almost a symbol of resilience, humility, and quiet survival. Stories spread online constantly about his kindness toward strangers, generosity toward film crews, and respectful behavior toward coworkers. While some viral posts became exaggerated over time, many were supported by real interviews from directors, stunt performers, assistants, and actors who worked alongside him. These stories accumulated for years until audiences no longer viewed him as just another movie star. They saw him as proof that fame did not always destroy empathy. That emotional investment became incredibly powerful because modern audiences had grown cynical after watching scandal after scandal involving public figures they once admired. Keanu felt different to people, not because he claimed moral superiority publicly, but because his actions appeared consistent across decades. Therefore, when Alexandra appeared beside him, fans reacted protectively. They did not want the relationship to become another manufactured Hollywood disappointment. And the more time passed without major drama, the more convinced people became that what they were seeing might actually be genuine. There's also something fascinating about how Alexandra herself handled global attention after the relationship became public. Many individuals in similar situations immediately lean into celebrity culture because sudden visibility can create enormous financial and social opportunities. Alexandra largely resisted that temptation. She continued focusing on art exhibitions, creative discussions, publishing projects, and intellectual conversations instead of transforming herself into an influencer personality. Even her interviews discussing Keanu often remained balanced and respectful rather than emotionally theatrical. She acknowledged public fascination while still protecting personal boundaries. That balance probably strengthened public trust because audiences sensed authenticity rather than opportunism. And importantly, documented evidence supported that impression. Alexandra already had an established artistic identity before tabloids became obsessed with her personal life. Galleries, collaborative projects, interviews, and professional achievements existed independently from Keanu's fame. Understanding that timeline is essential because online gossip frequently erases women's accomplishments whenever they become connected romantically to famous men. But the factual record surrounding Alexandra shows years of professional creative work long before global headlines focused on her relationship status. Another reason people became emotionally attached to their story involves age itself. Hollywood rarely celebrates mature relationships naturally. Entertainment media constantly pushes unrealistic fantasies built around youth, perfection, and image manipulation. So when audiences saw Alexandra embracing gray hair confidently beside one of the world's most recognizable actors, the reaction became much bigger than celebrity gossip. Many women publicly described feeling emotional seeing someone exist comfortably without trying to erase every sign of aging. The internet discussion surrounding Alexandra's appearance revealed enormous cultural insecurity about beauty standards. Critics made cruel comments initially, but over time, public sentiment shifted strongly in her favor because people recognized how refreshing authenticity looked compared to endless cosmetic performance culture. Even Keanu's own appearance contributed to that reaction. Despite being an action superstar through the John Wick era, he also visibly aged naturally instead of attempting to preserve an artificial image at all costs. Together, they unintentionally represented something audiences were starving for: adults who looked comfortable existing honestly in public. That honesty created emotional trust. Another interesting truth is how their relationship exposed the difference between privacy and secrecy. Many tabloids originally treated Keanu's quiet personal life like a mystery, requiring investigation. But privacy is not deception. Throughout his career, Keanu consistently chose not to commercialize personal experiences publicly. That boundary existed long before Alexandra entered the picture. Interviews from decades earlier already showed him redirecting invasive questions away from intimate topics. He rarely treated emotional pain or romance as entertainment material. In today's media environment, where celebrities are encouraged to reveal everything constantly, that restraint almost feels unusual. But it also explains why fans reacted so strongly once he allowed small glimpses of happiness publicly. Because he had protected his private life so carefully for years, those moments carried more emotional weight than endless oversharing ever could. One of the most widely discussed examples involved interviews where Keanu spoke subtly but warmly about companionship and happiness. Fans immediately noticed the difference in tone, not because he suddenly transformed into a completely different person, but because there was visible softness and peace present in ways audiences had rarely seen before. Another important layer involves creativity itself. Both Keanu and Alexandra seem connected through artistic curiosity rather than celebrity image building. Their collaborations on books and publishing projects reflected mutual fascination with storytelling, visual interpretation, language, and emotional meaning. These are not typical tabloid subjects, which may explain why mainstream gossip coverage often miss the deeper foundation of their relationship entirely. When people focus only on paparazzi photos, they overlook the intellectual partnership visible beneath the surface. Interviews discussing their projects reveal thoughtful communication and mutual respect rather than superficial glamour. And that kind of connection tends to create stronger, long-term stability because it exists beyond external attention cycles. Even the publishing company they co-founded reflected shared values around supporting creative expression rather than chasing mass-market celebrity branding opportunities. That detail matters because actions usually reveal priorities more honestly than headlines do. Another fascinating aspect is how both of them seem unusually grounded despite living inside industries built around ego and visibility. Coworkers repeatedly describe Keanu as disciplined, polite, collaborative, and respectful during film productions. Stunt coordinators from the John Wick Chapter 4 production discuss the extraordinary level of physical preparation he committed to, including intense weapons training, driving sequences, martial arts rehearsal, and choreography practice. Despite decades of success, he still approached work like someone determined to earn respect through effort rather than reputation alone. Alexandra's professional world similarly values process, thoughtfulness, and long-term creative development rather than instant fame. Perhaps that shared grounding explains why they appear emotionally balanced together publicly. There is no visible desperation for validation because both individuals already had established identities independently. That independence removes pressure many celebrity relationships struggle under. Neither person appears dependent on public approval to justify the relationship itself. And audiences can feel that confidence. Another reason fans continue discussing them years later is because the relationship slowly became symbolic of hope for many people. Not fantasy fairy tale hope built around perfection, but realistic hope built around emotional survival and mature connection. Keanu's life story contains well-documented grief and hardship. Fans who followed his career for decades witnessed periods where he seemed deeply isolated emotionally. Therefore, seeing him comfortable beside someone later in life resonated powerfully with audiences who understood loss themselves. Many people projected personal emotions onto the relationship because it represented the possibility that healing and companionship can still exist after tragedy. Whether intentional or not, Keanu and Alexandra became symbols of emotional resilience for many viewers around the world. That symbolic meaning explains why public interest remained strong even without scandals fueling headlines constantly. Usually celebrity attention depends on chaos. In this case, audiences stayed invested because of emotional sincerity instead. Another overlooked detail is how little either of them tries to dominate public conversation. Even during major appearances together, they rarely behave like individuals competing for camera attention constantly. Photographers often capture them talking quietly, laughing naturally, or moving through events calmly instead of performing exaggerated celebrity gestures. That subtlety stands out precisely because modern entertainment culture rewards louder behavior. Many stars feel pressured to create viral moments deliberately. Keanu and Alexandra often appear unaware of or uninterested in manufacturing those moments at all. Ironically, that authenticity creates more lasting impact than carefully planned publicity strategies ever could. People remember genuine interactions because they feel emotionally real. Even small gestures between them became viral because viewers sensed honesty underneath them. There is also the question of why so many false rumors and conspiracy theories surrounded the relationship. Initially, part of the answer is simple. Audiences had difficulty believing something so straightforward could exist inside Hollywood without hidden motives attached. Internet culture thrives on exposing secrets and uncovering contradictions. Therefore, many people searched aggressively for evidence that the relationship was fake, manipulative, strategic, or deceptive somehow. But over time, those theories consistently collapsed against observable reality. Interviews matched behavior, timelines aligned logically, collaborators confirmed long-term friendship, public appearances remained consistent, no major scandals emerged contradicting the image audiences observed. Eventually, even skeptical viewers began admitting the simplest explanation might actually be the correct one. Two people met through shared creative interests. built a strong friendship over time, and eventually formed a relationship grounded in mutual respect and emotional maturity. Compared to sensational Hollywood narratives, that truth almost sounded too ordinary for some people to accept at first. But ordinary authenticity is exactly what made the relationship extraordinary in modern celebrity culture. Another significant reason the relationship resonates globally is because it challenges assumptions about masculinity too. Keanu's public persona does not rely heavily on aggressive celebrity dominance or performative alpha behavior, despite starring in some of the biggest action films ever made. Instead, many fans admire his gentleness, introspection, and emotional intelligence alongside his physical screen presence. Alexandra's calm confidence complements that energy rather than competing with it theatrically. Together, they represent a form of partnership built around balance instead of spectacle, and audiences exhausted by toxic celebrity dynamics often respond positively to that healthier emotional model. Of course, it is important not to idealize any public figures excessively. No outsider truly knows every private reality inside another person's life. Both Keanu and Alexandra deserve boundaries beyond public projection, but based on documented evidence available publicly across years of interviews, collaborations, appearances, and professional behavior, the central truth surrounding them appears remarkably consistent. There is no convincing evidence supporting the dramatic narratives tabloids and internet gossip repeatedly attempted to create. Instead, there is strong evidence of friendship evolving gradually into partnership through shared creativity, emotional understanding, privacy, and mutual respect. Perhaps that is why the story continues resonating worldwide. In a culture addicted to outrage, scandal, and artificial performance, people are drawn toward relationships that feel emotionally steady and believable. Keanu Reeves and Alexandra Grant did not become fascinating because they behaved like perfect celebrities. They became fascinating because they often behaved like real human beings, navigating attention without letting it completely reshape who they already were. And maybe that is the truth audiences were searching for all along. If there's one thing fans finally understand about Keanu Reeves and Alexandra Grant, it is that real connections do not need constant noise to prove they are real. Through years of rumors, headlines, and endless internet theories, they stayed consistent, private, respectful, and true to themselves. And honestly, that might be the rarest thing left in Hollywood today. If you respect Keanu for staying genuine all these years, and you are happy seeing him peaceful and appreciated, hit the like button and share your thoughts below. And if you want more real celebrity stories without fake drama or made-up rumors, subscribe now because the next story might completely change the way you see Hollywood forever.